I saw something, I believe it was on your social media, you applied to run before Rick Saccone?
Right, actually, yeah. I turned in my paperwork to the Department of State 10 days prior to what Rick Saccone actually turned his in. And it's unfortunate because there's a debate taking place this Saturday with WTAE, and it's being hosted by the League of Women Voters. And I wasn't invited to this debate. And so when I contacted the League of Women Voters, what they told me was that, oh, we contacted Allegheny County back in January, and they told us that there were only 2 candidates, and it was Rick Saccone and Connor Lamb, and the League of Women Voters never contacted the Department of State, and had they done that, they would have seen there was actually 3 candidates, and maybe I would have gotten invited to the debates. But I'm finding out now that the League of Women Voters actually wants me to be there. I think WTAE wouldn't mind if I were there, but it's actually Connor Lamb and Rick Saccone, from what I'm being told from both sides, saying that if I were there, they wouldn't have gone to the debate and had a debate.
Absolutely. I was going to say, I've been the kind of reporter here that's been covering this, you know, in and out, going to a lot of the events. I was here for Trump and Pence. Biden's actually coming here next Tuesday. Unfortunately, I'll be in Florida, so I'm not complaining about that. But I was at the debate, and I noticed that you weren't there. Now, granted that I really didn't even know until, you know, a couple days before I contacted you and I wanted to reach out to you. You know, how hard is it coming from a third party to come up, and I don't want to say come up, you know, from nothing, because that's an inaccurate statement, but to come up and try to contend with people that have the financial support, the volunteer support, the staff, you know, and the backing of national committees, statewide committees, county committees, city committees. Talk about a little bit how hard that is.
It's extremely difficult because, like, so for example, I have a real job during the day. I'm an oil and gas attorney, and so I have to go to that job, and then I'm trying to do interviews and talking to students, like either in the morning or when I leave my job at night. And sometimes I'll go during my lunch break to go on a couple of interviews. But I don't have a staff that works full time for me because I can't afford it. In fact, I've made so little money that I didn't even have to contact the FEC yet, because you don't have to contact the FEC until you reach a $5,000 threshold, and I still have not yet raised $5,000. And the reason for that is I don't have any support from the National Party monetarily. They've given me a couple of like Facebook likes, and they have put my face up on their particular website, but they haven't given me a single dime from the National Party or any type of like other resources. So it's been extremely difficult for me. Plus, I've only been talking exclusively to high school and college age students. I haven't talked to a single group of people whose members are over the age of 24, just because I think that this young vote is so important, and I want to see a high voter turnout of these young voters in this particular special election.
Now, does it concern you that, you know, people don't even know you exist or don't even know that you're running? And, you know, does that concern you with, obviously, the chance of you winning this race?
It's really frustrating, and here's the reason why. If you take a look at the 2 other candidates, people say that they like Connor Lamb because he has this legal background, this knowledge and respect of the Constitution, and, you know, he's a younger guy, and a lot of people think that we need that young blood in Washington. But they like Rick Saccone because he has that experience at the legislative branch of government. Well, I'm a younger guy like Connor Lamb. I have a legal background. I've been a lawyer licensed for 10 years now, and I also have experience at the legislative branch of government because I was employed by the Senate of Pennsylvania for several years. So I basically have both of the strongest skills that the 2 candidates have merged together. That's really been my campaign too. If you take a look, I'm kind of the Goldilocks candidate is what I tell people, in the sense that, you know, I'm fiscally conservative and socially liberal, which is like a blending of the best qualities of each of the parties.
So, you know, the real question that I want to know, and I know people want to know, you know, obviously the 2 main parties in this race, or I want to say in any race, are Democratic and Republican. We can all agree on that.
Right.
You know, that's why it's called a third party. Do you think that you legitimately have a shot to win this race, or are you trying to make an impact and see those young voters go to the polls and see those numbers, and whenever they review the polls and whenever we're covering this live and say, wow, you know, this Libertarian is coming in with 10% of the votes. Wow, that's unforeseen.
Yeah.
I never thought about that. What is your do you think you have a legit chance to win this, or are you just trying to make an impact?
Early on, I think I had a legit chance to win it, just because if you take a look at to society now, people are really upset with the Republican and the Democratic parties. They're really concerned about the divisiveness in the country. I think if you asked anyone what the biggest problem facing America is, they'll probably tell you it's the divisiveness in America that's being caused by the Republican and Democratic Party. And they say that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result each time. And so when we elect Democrats, we don't like the Democrats, we elect Republicans. And when we don't like the Republicans, we elect Democrats. And it's a vicious cycle. And so I think it's naive of people to think that they can elect a Democrat or a Republican and expect that person to go in and fix the very problems that are being caused by the Democrats and Republicans. I think if you want to do something different, you need to create change by electing a third-party candidate. So yeah, so early on, I thought that I had a chance, especially since I'm really the most qualified candidate on the ballot. If you take a look at just resumes between all three of the candidates, it's kind of a no-brainer. And so it's frustrating that more people don't know about me and probably won't know about me. So I guess at this point right now, especially since I'm not going to be in the debate this weekend, I think I really just want to try and make an impact. And I think that I will make an impact because the race right now is so close that they need every single vote they can get. And the thing is that when you throw in that third-party candidate, there's always that idea that they're going to steal votes away from the other person. So I think the big story on election night might be the fact that this third-party candidate, myself, was the reason one of the candidates won and another candidate lost. I'm not necessarily so upset by that notion because I think that this is what the Libertarian Party needs to try to gain momentum. And if just talking to like these younger students when I go out to these high schools, they are really libertarian in their hearts because they really are very socially liberal, but they don't want the government to dictate that they be socially liberal. Like they want to go out and they want to be the ones making the change within society themselves. So I think we're going to see a really high young turnout, and I really think that it's going to be all libertarians. So.
Turn that off So, thankfully, I don't think that'll pick it up.
That's okay.
Talking more about your policy,
mm-hmm.
I haven't had the time to do, extensive research in.
Sure.
But I did see that, on your website, off the top it said fiscally responsible. Can you, run us through what your main points are? Obviously, I heard you said you talked to, mainly 18 to 24.
Right.
And the college students, you're in the right place for that, obviously. But talk a little bit more about what your policy is and what you feel are your main hitters.
But to begin with, what I want to do is legalize marijuana for recreational purposes on a national level, on a federal level. And the reason I want to do that is not because I like smoking pot or anything like that. But what's happening right now in Pennsylvania is we have legalized medical marijuana, but it's still illegal at the federal level. So at any moment, a federal agent could come in and arrest someone who is a cancer patient, who's using medical marijuana. But even more so, if you have a medical marijuana ID card, you can't legally purchase a handgun because on the ATF form, when you go to purchase a handgun, it specifically asks, do you use marijuana? And so if you have this medical marijuana ID card, you can't even lie and say that you don't. So we can't allow anything to infringe upon our Second Amendment rights. I just think the easiest way to resolve that would be to legalize marijuana for recreational purposes on a national level. I don't see marijuana as being any more dangerous than alcohol. It's working really well over in Colorado. And in terms of the fiscal side of it, I read a Business Insider article that said by the year 2025, if we did legalize marijuana, it would create 1 million new jobs and bring in $130 billion every year in additional tax revenue. So I think it'd be a really great idea. In terms of other drugs, we have a huge, as you know, heroin epidemic, opioid epidemic in this country, and especially in this particular area right now where people are just dying every single day from it. And what I want to do is I want to tell people that addiction is not a crime. And I want to address addiction as a mental health issue and not as a criminal issue. So I want to institute a drug policy like they have over in Portugal. Over in Portugal, what they did was they had a really terrible opioid epidemic several years ago. And what the government did was they said, okay, what we're going to do is decriminalize drugs. That doesn't mean that they legalize them. That means that if you get caught shooting up heroin, instead of going to jail and having that on your record for the rest of your life, you'll be sent to a treatment facility where you'll be able to get well, get clean, and become a productive member of society. Since Portugal did that, they saw a reduction in their HIV rates, they saw a reduction in the overall drug use, and they saw a reduction in the deaths caused by these overdoses. So it's working over in Portugal. I think it could work really well here in America.
Okay, now one of the biggest hot button topics around the country right now, and I think something that wasn't really part of anybody's campaign going into this, gun control.
Right.
Just yesterday, Dick's Sporting Goods said, no more ARs, no more guns under 21. Walmart says no more guns under 21. What is your stance? Now, keep in mind that Rick Saccone and Connor Lamb both served this nation in the armed forces. Connor Lamb, who's a Democrat, who typically should, if you're going straight ticket, should be against or for gun control against the Second Amendment, stated in an interview with me that he is for guns. He is for people having that right. What is your stance on that?
You know, I agree with the other two candidates in the sense that, you know, I don't really think that gun control is going to solve the issues that we're having that's stemming from the gun violence. There's this notion that the guns themselves are creating the gun violence. And you'll see, I've seen people on my Facebook page talk about like, well, we have more guns in this country than we do people in this country, and that's what's causing the gun violence. And I just don't think that that's the case. I think if you take a look at the school shootings, all of the school shooters seem to be young men. You know, you don't really see any young women committing these crimes of a mass shooting. And I think that that tells me that it is a mental health issue, that's not just a gun issue. And so I think what we have to do is address it as a mental health issue. And if we can do that, as address it as a mental health issue, we won't only necessarily solve the issue that we're having with gun violence. We might solve a plethora of other issues related to mental illness. You know, I think that like with mental illness, we like to talk about it, but when it comes down to actually voting to help people with mental illness, they get tossed to the side. To give you an example, I'm the president of a nonprofit organization in Pittsburgh that works to help the homeless in Pittsburgh and also helps those people who are hungry too, to get them food. And what we found is that a lot of these people who are homeless, the reason they're homeless has to do with a lot of mental health issues. It's like mental health and addiction issues, and that's what's making them homeless. You know, it's not the fact that they're lazy, that they can't find a job, or that they want to be homeless. It's the fact that like it's this mental health issue that's caused them to be homeless. So if you solve the mental health issue, you're going to solve a homelessness issue in addition to potentially all of the crime stemming from potentially those gun violences.
Of course. Now, you know, you say you focus strictly on people between the age of 18 and 24.
Right.
Does that concern you that you're not targeting anybody in the vast majority of voters, 25 to 85? You
know, I've talked to a lot of those people, and what I'm finding is that they just are not open to my ideas. You know, they've been voting either Republican or Democrat for so long that they don't really even consider another option. And when I go in and talk to high school seniors and college students, they're more open-minded, and I think they're willing to embrace a libertarian ideal. You know, I mean, the idea that you want to, that I want to legalize marijuana for recreational purposes on a national level, even some of the most liberal of Democrats aren't even talking about that. You know, so these are ideas that people haven't heard before, that they might not be comfortable with. The idea that I want to, decriminalize all drugs, I think is something that isn't really, that doesn't go over well with a lot of people. But I think it's the right thing to do. You know, I'm the only candidate, I think, that's really giving a lot of good answers to a lot of the problems that we have in America.
Of course. One final question I have for you, before you can say anything else you want to say. If you could be at every polling station in the 18th district, and you could say one thing to every single person going in that doesn't know who they're going to vote for or already has their mind made up, to convince them to give, new light on a new party that's never held, this office before, what would you say?
I'd probably say to them, the Republicans and the Democrats have failed you. And you keep electing Republicans and Democrats, and that's done no good for you. you need to try something different by electing a third-party congressional candidate, and especially one that has my qualifications. I'm able to bring to the table something that neither of the candidates can bring, and that's the legal background coupled with my experience at the legislative branch of government. I'm here to let people know that every single person in this country has value and that they deserve to have a place at the table of this government that calls itself of, by, and for the people.
Awesome. Is there anything else that I didn't go over that you want to add in there?
You know, the only thing I would add is that this is a really exciting election because this is going to be the first time in 18 years, and probably over 18 years, that this particular district is going to be able to have a third-party option for a congressional candidate. I've only been able to find statistics going back the last 18 years, and in fact, in the last 2 election cycles, they've only had one option, that was Tim Murphy. So I think the idea that we're going to have 3 candidates on the ballot, and that's going to be the first time that a lot of voters have ever even seen that, it's really exciting, and it's really an honor to be that third-party candidate.